Hey guys, this is a day 3 video and there's multiple sections to this, so feel free to stop it at any time. You can pause and go to the other links below each one on this video for the Google site. So the first one is simply naming prisms. That's a goal for today. You'll notice that it says the vertical faces are rectangles. So the vertical is the part that goes up and down, and each one does in fact have a rectangle. That's why we've called all of these prisms. There's other things such as pyramids and cones that we'll be learning about later, but for today, everything you see should be a prism. All of the sides should have rectangles. From there, we give it a more specific name because of its base. So notice how this one has a triangle. Even though you can't see it on the bottom, the base is the bottom, it would have that same shape and be a triangle. This one would have a square on the bottom. That's why we call it a square prism. This has a pentagon. There's 5 sides, so the base would also have 5. And since it's a rectangle that we see for all of them, again, we call it a prism. There's more options than what's just up here, but know that if you see a rectangle, we call it a prism, and then whatever name you would give to the top part that you see, that's what goes before it. Our second purpose for today is just to also give you some familiar vocabulary. So a vertex is the corner of all of my shapes. So the corner of my figures, for example, G is a vertex. An edge is the line segment where the 2 faces of a 3D shape meet. So for example, this right here is what that arrow was trying to show you as an edge. Or for another example, this could be an edge. Also, familiar word to know would be a face. So the flat part of a 2-dimensional shape that you see is in front of you right here. This is a face. A face could also be the top of this shape, or the side of this shape, or the bottom of the shape. Any part that is a flat surface is considered a face, and we could name all 3 of these on every figure. So if I went to this one, for example, a vertex could be any of these corners. Those are what we would call a vertex. An edge is all the flat lines. So for example, this is an edge. You can have an edge, anything that's a line. And then the face is just any of the flat parts. So at this point, go ahead, you can pause the video and go to the link that says how to name shapes, and it'll give you some more prisms to compare the number of vertices, the number of edges, to the number of faces. So if you're unfamiliar with this vocab, go ahead and go to the link. Again, it's called How to Name Shapes, and it'll give you some more examples with different prisms. Our other big purpose for today is to slice figures. What we mean by slicing is that you make a cut where you see this line. So a lot of times you'll see it as more of a shadow that looks like it's going through the shape. All it's asking you to do is name what would happen if I were to make that cut and fold the shape open. So here, if I took a knife and went through it, I would see what's on the top, which is a rectangle. Over here, it says it's still a rectangle going this way, but it wants me to make the cut vertically. So if I cracked that thing open, I would see what's right here. So that's why it says it is a square. If I was to make a slice this way through a circle, then I would see, again, the base from where I cut, and I would see that circle. I like to think of it, the slice, wherever way I cut it, if you ignore the rest of that shape, it's what appears out in front. Or same thing here, if I sliced across the bottom, I wouldn't have this part left anymore, and I would just see the top of my shape. So the answer is as simple as I would see a rectangle, or I would see a square, or I would see a circle. It doesn't have to be that complicated. It's just a 2-dimensional shape where if I made this cut, I would see exactly what came out in front, and I would just see a square. Think of it as making a slice and breaking that shape open to see what's left. At this point, you can also watch the ninja video. It's kind of fun. He slices through a bunch of figures and gives you some more examples. And then you can come up to the front and grab the half sheet. So after you've watched the Ninja video, if you feel confident, you can go ahead and play around with it a little bit. On this half sheet, this is the third link on the Google site that's called the cross-section flyer. When you pull up this link, it'll originally come up with some other shapes for you, such as I could click on a cone, I could click on a cylinder, I could click on a pyramid. But again, all of the shapes that we've been learning today are prisms. So when you go to the site, the first thing you need to do is click on prism. And then you also need to make the prism match. So for example, the first one on our worksheet says a cube. A cube is something that has 4 faces on the bottom because it's a square. So what I'm going to do is change this. You can slide it to the left or right. And I'm going to make mine 4 to make my cube. To do the rest of the worksheet, there are more prisms. So again, you can change this to be smaller or bigger based on your base. You can also change it to a pyramid, which is something that comes together at the point for the third example. The other thing to point out is that you can move this not only vertically, but you can also slide it around up and down. Sorry, this is the one yet, so we go up and down. Or I can also move it to the side. This one, Z, just moves it front or back or across your shape. So as you're playing with it, exactly what I did, you can do a little trial and error to get the cube to go horizontally. I would make mine look like this. I can move it up, I can move it down, but notice every time it should say a square in your picture. When you go do the vertical slice, just remember the vertical slice is up and down. Then I would rotate this guy so it's straight up and down. Oh, and there we go. Now you can see it. So this is what we would call a vertical cut because it's going straight up and down as you move it. And again, I do see a square. So as you're moving these two shapes, you're going to notice this red one keeps rotating around like what I've been showing you. You want the picture to match exactly what's on your worksheet. So this is an example of a cube. It has only 4 faces. It is a prism because it has rectangles. And then I moved it so this is vertically. Horizontal is straight across. Vertically is straight up and down. Once you know this half sheet, make sure you check it on the board before you go on to the day 3 homework.